Mornings are my favorite time of the day. I really started to teach myself the importance of waking up in the morning and being like, it doesn't matter what happens tomorrow, this is today. Once you've conquered that and you know, like, to live as present as possible, I think that's really important.
From hosting nightlife events around Europe to boiler room sessions to becoming a content presenter, producer and podcast host, Katie Knight's career has often meant long nights, constant travel and an ever-changing schedule. Despite this, Katie manages to make the most of her mornings, finding time to relax, reflect and connect with loved ones. This is how the morning helps her rise and shine. Well, thank you very much for being here, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. So yeah, we always like to start with, I guess, what wakes you up in the morning and what's your first thought about the day?
There's two things that wake me up in the morning. It's either my alarm clock or my dog.
Okay.
Disco is my dog. I feel like I always kind of wake up at the same time. Like most mornings by 6:30, no matter what time I've gone to sleep, I'm more or less awake.
Okay.
And I think he knows that. So he's like, if it's gone a little bit past 6:30, would have jumped off on the bed and just be staring at me like, why isn't she waking up? So yeah, that either wakes me up or my alarm clock would go off if it was any earlier than 6:30. Otherwise, more or less, I would be up for that time. And I guess my first thought of the day is, what am I doing today? What am I doing next? With work, my routine is very different every single day.
Yeah.
And I travel a lot with work. So I think it's just kind of getting around, kind of working out where I need to be and like what the logistics are. I feel like travel does really change my routine. In a dream world, I would love to have a routine and be able to have like the same way that I wake up every morning and, you know, go and take Disco out for a walk first thing and then do some exercise. But realistically, it's not like that. Um, I've always been a person that has needed routine in my life, and I have found it very hard over the years living without that routine. And I feel like the last few months I've actually started to come to terms with the fact that sometimes routine isn't always possible in a morning and that I just need to live day to day.
Okay.
So instead of thinking about, yeah, every Monday at this time, I'm going to get up and go to yoga. Every Tuesday, I'm going to get up and by this time, I'm going to be running. It just doesn't happen. And I used to really like overschedule and overplan. And I would just do like a 2-week plan of like, this is the exercise I'm going to do. And then I'm going to have, this breakfast here and that there.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work. So I really started to teach myself and learn the importance of just like waking up in the morning and being like, it doesn't matter what happens tomorrow, this is today. And I think that that's also really made me be a lot more present with what I do, especially in the morning, instead of really just overthinking about, okay, well, but tomorrow I'm going to do this and Thursday I'm going to do that. Now it's like, okay, today is today. And now I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a walk and I'm not going to be on my phone. I'm going to be present. And then I'm going to go on to the next thing. And that's really, really made my mornings a lot calmer.
So you've woken up, Disco's jumped on you, woken you up. What's next?
I have a really big glass of cold water. I know that's a really small, specific thing. I do that every single morning. And then I have my water. I like wash my face, brush my teeth, and put on just some really comfy trousers or like some workout clothes, and I will go and take Disco for a really long walk. And then come home, and if I have time, then I will fit in a workout.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the walk, is that just a good time to like clear your head, or like you said, it's about being present, it's just you and Disco and you can kind of
It is.
stock of things?
It's present time for me and Disco, but I also always listen to the Global News podcast at that time.
Okay.
Just because I just don't ever feel like I don't really watch TV at all. In fact, I couldn't even tell you the last time I watched TV. So I don't watch the news. And I just think that is my like intake of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And they round it up quite easily and quite nicely, and it's an easy listen. So it's like 30-minute podcast. So I will normally listen to that. I love it in the morning if I'm walking Disco and we're up, say, 6:30, or even if it's before. I love being outside and there's nobody on the street. I just find it really peaceful.
You work out, is that like yoga or something more intense, or is it?
So again, it totally depends on how much time I have.
Okay.
But normally, ideally, it would be yoga or a hit session or go for a run.
Okay.
I always leave my running days for days that I am working from home or don't have to travel anywhere. So, because then I can do a long run and don't have to think about how long I've
Yeah.
got to be. But if it's a day that I'm on quite a tight schedule, then I would normally do a hit workout. I have some weights at home. I don't go to the gym. This is all from home. So I'll just do it like in the bedroom, get the weights out, maybe watch a YouTube video or just something that I can follow just to get me moving. And then other days, if I could go to a yoga class or Pilates class or something like that, then that's a, a really good start to the day, but it doesn't happen as much as I'd like it to.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I like to be up and about. I don't really like having, I don't want to say lazy because I guess lazy for everyone is different, but I can't really stay in bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Even if it was a Sunday and I have nothing to do, I mean, latest I'd probably get up is like 8 or maybe half 8, but it's pushing it, but I'd probably be laid in bed reading or writing or something.
The writing, is that like in a journal, or is it for work, or what was it normally?
Journaling.
Okay.
Yeah, journaling.
When did you start that?
I probably started journaling about 7 years ago, maybe. It actually was a huge game changer in my life, just getting my thoughts out. And I really like it. I think it's so nice to sometimes years on ahead read back and, when you've had rough times in life and read back and it makes you see like how far you've come and, how, what you were feeling at that time. And I just think it's a really great way just to get your thoughts out in the morning. Sometimes when there's a lot happening and you try and tell somebody, but when you try and tell them, it kind of like doesn't make sense and you don't really get out what you want to say. Whereas when it's just on paper, it's just like you and the journal, right? If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, but you just kind of getting all of that, tension and pressure and negativity out on paper. And I always just feel a lot lighter.
Yeah.
So again, I would love to journal every single day. And I definitely went through a phase where I did journal every single day, even if it was a few minutes.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's more a few times a week rather than every single day. But yeah, I find that really like a really nice time just for me and myself.
Yeah.
And also I like writing down like just things that I'm grateful for and, people that I probably haven't spoken to for a really long time, but I'll write out their name and just write a little bit about them. And then it just reminds me about them. And then will remind me to contact them like later on in the next few days. So I just think it's just a really nice little practice, especially in the morning, just kind of start the day feeling a bit grateful for life and the people around you. I actually started this thing probably about 2 or 3 years ago. So I don't have an agenda where I write out what I've got every single day. I use notes on my iPhone, but I started this thing that I've put in every single day and it's person of the day. So every single day I'll like choose one person. And then even if it's just a message, just to say, hey, how are you? Or jump on a quick call or just checking in and seeing, you know, how my grandma is or how my auntie is or how somebody that I went to school with is. And even if it's just a real quick hello, goodbye, what's new.
Yeah. And the mornings are, I imagine, a perfect time to do that because it's before everyone starts their day. So it's easier to like think, right, I'm going to take the time now just to message someone. And because while it's difficult to keep in contact with people, it's also never been easier, I guess. So like it's a nice time in the morning to say, I'm going to just message that person.
Totally. And I also think messaging the other person in the morning as well is like nice for them because it's like, oh, most people will say to you, that's a nice surprise to wake up to or a nice morning message. So I think it is a nice time to do that.
Yes. And how does that, we touched on it a little bit before, but when you're traveling for work, it's more, are there any of those elements like the journaling or the exercise, or you obviously don't have disco with you, but are there any of those things that you like to keep, that you always try to keep even if you're traveling, if you're not at home?
So with the journaling, I don't take the journal with me everywhere because it's just like one extra thing to take. So I do sometimes just write things out on my notes. So if there's something that I really just want to feel like I need to get out and want to write down, then I will use notes on my iPhone.
Yeah.
So I kind of use that as a little bit of a travel journal, I guess. Exercise. Every time I go away somewhere, I pack my trainers and my exercise things. Do I ever do it? No, probably not.
Intention's there.
The intention is there.
But it really sounds like you're a morning person. Do you think, like, how valuable do you find that time in the morning to help, just for the rest of your day, I guess?
Yeah, mornings are my favorite time of the day. It is when I feel most energized, where I kind of just gather my thoughts and, as I said before, just think about, what the day is going to look like and how I can get the most out of the day.
Yeah.
Instead of just thinking about tomorrow. And I think a lot of people do live in the future a lot more and then forget about being present.
Yeah.
Um, and I think once you've conquered that and like to live as present as possible, I think that's really important.
Yeah. That's something, I know you mentioned that before, the being present, and it's not always easy, like you say. And I
Oh.
think sounds like the morning's a great time for you to like really set that, like, that you set that out, that you're going to be present and
Yeah,
enjoy that time. And yeah, how have you found that, like, since you made that switch to try to be a bit more present?
totally. I think it's just like changed my whole mood as well. And just like feeling like you're doing everything you do with intention. And it's not just like, oh, right, another chore, or I've got to do this, I've got to do that. I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously there's going to be stuff where I'm probably not as present as, just like chores around the house and you're running around, because at the end of the day, mornings are mornings, and they're not all going to be like, oh, I'm going to journal every morning, I'm going to do yoga every morning, and I'm going to be as present as possible. It's not always like that, but I do always try and make it as, as present and just be as mindful as possible throughout the whole day. Because I think once you start your day like that, then it's just a really good start. I think another, like, one of my battles is in a morning, what I would say is social media. I definitely, for about a couple of years, I banned myself from going on social media before 10 a.m. in the morning. I can't say I do that anymore, because there are mornings where I'll be like, I don't know, I could have had a conversation with somebody the night before, on Instagram, or a lot of my work is based around social media and, and content creation. So sometimes I'll be like, oh, I wonder how this is performed, or, it's sometimes it's just hard not to.
Yeah.
But I do try very hard not to get like stuck in a rabbit hole, and
It's very
it's so easy. You could like go onto one thing that will just lead you on to the next thing. You're thinking like, why is it 8 in the morning? Am I looking at my friend's sister's cousin's dog, which I've never met before and never will?
yeah. It's very it can really get you. But like you say, it's tough for like you, because it's part of your job. So like in some ways I can imagine it's helpful to look at that in the morning, but equally it's like trying to do, right, I'm going to look at what I need to look at and then
Yeah,
put it down.
exactly. And I think also it just takes up so much of your time. And I think mornings are so limited. Like, I don't know if you feel the same, but I just feel like mornings go so quickly.
Definitely.
Don't
Yeah, yeah.
Like, they
Definitely.
go much quicker than the rest of the day. And I don't know if that's just because we've all got so many things to do in a morning, and it is quite fast paced. Um, but I do find that mornings go so quickly. So if I've been stuck like 20 minutes scrolling, I'm like, I've just lost 20 minutes, and I could have, you know, done an extra 20-minute walk or an exercise
Yeah.
or something. And then, I spend a lot of my day traveling to places anyway, because then I have that time. If I want to sit in the back of an Uber and scroll, then that's okay to do that. But don't waste your morning doing it.
Yeah.
I don't like wasted mornings.
I think that's a really good point about the, like, mornings going really fast. And actually, I think I know I do, and I think a lot of people like use the morning to think, right, what have I got to do later in the day, or like, what am I going to do, and not really take the morning as like valuable time in itself, I guess, which sounds like you do a very good job of like making the most of that morning time in itself rather than just
Yeah.
time to think, right, what else have I got to do?
Yeah. I think sometimes if you've had a bit of a stressful day before, um, or a rubbish day, or it's just been one of those, one of those days.
Yeah.
I like the fact of waking up and just being like, okay, that happened, that's done, we're starting fresh, and like just trying to put that to bed and just forget about what's happened and kind of just, yeah, reflect on why that had happened and like what you got to do to make it better that like this coming day.
Yeah.
So I like mornings for that as well, because it's just like, it's like a new chance, isn't it? Like, okay, you're up again, here we go again. What are we going to change so it's not like yesterday?
Yeah. Amazing.
And I like that thought.
Yeah, definitely.
And depending on how you start your day is going to decide what your day's like, really. Because
Oh,
if
yeah.
you start off in a bad way, then most likely it just goes downhill from there.
And then one thing we always like to end on is, whose morning routine would you like to know more about or be interested to know? And it could be someone you know, famous person, could be anybody really.
I can tell you the type of person,
Yeah.
and there's not so many specific. I think, and something that I always admire, are working mums, um, and especially mums that have to like travel with their work, because I know how stressful it is, like working and like having to travel every single day, and with a dog, but with children as well, and like getting the kids up and, you know, getting them ready for school or for nursery, or maybe they're not even at nursery, but like having to spend that time, be present with them, but also try and um have that important morning time for yourself as well, which I'm gonna guess, I mean, I don't have children yet, but I'm imagine that that time for you probably is very, very small when you're a mum in the morning.
Yeah.
Um, but I always really admire that, and I'm always like interested to see, what's your routine like, and how do what's your mindset in the morning? Which again, I can just imagine is very stressful and very hard, and probably the most stressful one of them all.
Yeah. It's a very good one. Yeah, I think
I
that's
think that was really one I would be like interested to know more about.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
having me. It's really nice to talk about mornings, because it's not something you really often talk about. So
No, we were hoping to find out more about everybody. So thanks again.
thank you so much.
Thanks.